In the gray autumn skies over the Black Sea coast, long before the ritual of airport security lines, handheld metal detectors, armed sky marshals, and liquid restrictions became the unremarkable routine of modern air travel. There was October 27, 1970, a Tuesday like any other in the monotonous rhythm of late Brezhnev-era Soviet life. A routine Aeroflot passenger flight, LET L200 Morava registration, USSR 34401, lifted off from the modest grass runway of Kerch airfield, carrying just a handful of unremarkable passengers toward their ordinary destinations. Farmers returning from coastal markets with empty sacks, shift workers heading to factory jobs in Krasnodar, a few headscarved elderly women visiting distant relatives in the Cuban countryside. The twin-engine Czech-built aircraft hummed steadily at low altitude, banking northwest over the glittering Kerch Strait as salty sea air buffeted its wings. Suddenly, without warning or radio contact, the plane veered sharply off course, its transponder silent, its path bending inexplicably southward across international waters toward foreign soil. On the ground, air traffic controllers in Simferopol Regional Tower watched in mounting confusion and alarm as the green blip on their primitive radar screens drifted purposefully toward Turkey, then faded entirely from secondary surveillance range. What dispatchers initially dismissed as a possible technical malfunction, navigational glitch, or even pilot error was, in reality, one of the most audacious and improbable acts of defiance ever mounted against the iron grip of the Soviet system. A brazen, mid-air hijacking executed not by battle-hardened professional operatives, battle-scarred ideological fanatics, battle-tested foreign spies, or even dissident intellectuals with underground networks, but by two utterly ordinary Crimean technical students in their early 20s, armed with nothing more than raw, youthful desperation, a crudely painted toy pistol from a seaside market stall, a wooden mock grenade carved from scrap lumber in a school workshop, and a rough burlap sack stolen from a collective farm supply depot. The story began not with dramatic confrontation, but with the quiet, methodical desperation of two young men plotting escape in the shadows of everyday Soviet drudgery. Weeks earlier, in the cramped, cigarette-scarred student dormitories, fog-shrouded, windswept streets, and brine-heavy sea air of Kerch, a gritty Black Sea port city on Crimea's eastern peninsula, known far more for its chalk quarries, rusting fishing trawlers, and contraband sailors' tales than for revolutionary fervor or anti-regime conspiracy. Nikolai Gilev, 22, lean and bespectacled with the precise mind of a drafting student, and his second cousin Vitaly Pozdiv, 21, broader-shouldered and quick-tempered with the instinctive nerve of someone whose family had sailed risky smuggling routes for generations, shared a narrow dormitory room at Kerch Polytechnic Institute. The space overflowed with dog-eared engineering textbooks, stained by weak T-rings, contraband posters of forbidden Western rock bands like the Beatles, smuggled ashore by Black Sea mariners in exchange for homemade cigarettes, and stacks of Western radio magazines passed hand-to-hand under desks during lectures. Late into the night, huddled around a shortwave receiver struggling against government jamming signals, they tuned Voice of America broadcasts crackling through static, absorbing tales of blue jeans abundance, uncensored rock concerts, and freedoms that mocked their own circumscribed existence. Life under Leonid Brezhnev's creeping stagnation, those years of stagnation, already whispered about in private kitchens, offered these bright but trapped young men few viable prospects. Inescapable 2-year compulsory military service loomed like a guillotine for every able-bodied male over 18, with postings to frozen Siberian garrisons, Central Asian barracks, or worse. State-assigned factory jobs after graduation promised 120 rubles monthly that barely stretched to black bread, watery cabbage soup, cheap vodka, and a shared communal apartment with thin walls and nosy neighbors. Travel beyond the USSR's sealed borders remained an impossible fantasy reserved exclusively for Communist Party nomenklatura elites, trusted Komsomol functionaries, or ballet dancers on tightly controlled cultural exchanges. Both cousins had absorbed family lore from grandparents who survived Stalin's terror, whispered accounts of great-uncles who fled across the Black Sea to Turkey during the 1920s famines, cousins who attempted desperate swims down the Dnieper River toward Romanian freedom in the 1940s, aunts deported to Kazakhstan whose letters abruptly ceased. These half-forgotten stories, amplified by pirated jazz records and smuggled jeans-wearing defector photographs, crystallized into a shared, burning conviction. Their personal futures, professional ambitions, and basic human autonomy lay irrevocably outside the suffocating 22 million square kilometer borders of the sprawling paranoid empire they had inherited at birth. They were neither firebrand radicals, clandestine revolutionaries, card-carrying dissidents, nor even particularly political in the ideological sense. Just two intelligent, resourceful, and increasingly restless engineering students who had coolly calculated over countless dormitory risk assessments scribbled on notebook margins that one extraordinarily desperate mid-air gamble offered their sole realistic pathway to self-determination and a life unscripted by 5-year plans. Their target emerged after meticulous reconnaissance as deceptively simple yet breathtakingly audacious. The Aeroflot operated Let L-200 Morava, a compact twin-engine passenger turboprop imported from Czechoslovakia's Let Aircraft Works, designed for short regional feeder routes along the Soviet Union's underdeveloped periphery. At under 3,500 kilograms, fully loaded with 9-passenger capacity plus 2 crew, its diminutive size and single-aisle cabin layout, barely 10 meters from nose to tail, made physical control feasible even for outnumbered civilians lacking combat training. The brothers, Gilev, anchoring planning with obsessive detail checklists and hand-sketched cockpit diagrams borrowed from library aviation manuals, Pozdev providing bold execution tempered by his family's seafaring grit, spent 3 weeks covertly scouting Kerch airfield on foot and battered bicycles, posing convincingly as curious local teenagers fascinated by planes. They cataloged the era's laughably lax security protocols. No uniformed armed guards patrolling the perimeter fence, which had more gaps than wire, 0 passenger or carry-on baggage screening beyond a cursory glance at crumpled ticket stubs, no X-ray machines or magnetometers, merely a lone, overworked female ticket clerk in a drafty wooden terminal sipping samovar tea from a chipped glass tumbler, a faded red windsock flapping lazily from a pole, and groundskeepers tending potato patches behind the hangar who barely glanced skyward. To avoid triggering suspicion about an anomalously empty flight, they purchased 3 round-trip tickets a week in advance from the indifferent clerk, 1 each for themselves under real names, and crucially a third for a fictitious Aunt Maria Ivanova, traveling with infant nephew to visit sick grandmother, ensuring the manifest appeared innocuously family normal rather than suspiciously sparse. Liftoff slot locked precisely for 14:20 Tuesday afternoon, promising clear weather per nautical almanac forecasts, light northwest winds at 5 knots, and optimal full fuel load for extended range, contingencies mapped with amateurish but thorough precision. Unbeknownst to the hijackers, whose dormitory rehearsals had accounted for every conceivable variable except pure serendipity, their ironclad plan acquired a chaotic human wildcard on flight morning itself, one that injected unintended high drama and split-second improvisation into their surgical operation. Yuri Durbanev, a sturdy, broad-shouldered 20-year-old construction brigade worker from a windswept collective farm 15 kilometers east, pounded breathlessly into the Kerch terminal at 1350. Mud-spattered leather boots trailing Black Sea clay, threadbare jacket collar turned against the chill. He had catastrophically missed the morning bus connection to Krasnodar after tractor repairs ran overtime, jeopardizing a plum short-term contract pouring concrete foundations for a priority new Kuban tractor assembly plant. Double standard wages at 15 rubles daily for skilled rebar men, enough to buy his mother a coveted Hungarian-made washing machine or finally repair the family's Zhiguli sedan. Begging desperately at the ticket window. "Comrade, 1 seat left?" "Krasnodar urgent. Tractor factory brigade waiting." Durbanev flashed crumpled work credentials stamped by the Regional Komsomol Construction Committee, a gap-toothed earnest grin born of farm hardship, and a crumpled 5-ruble note plucked from sock-stashed savings. The clerk, middle-aged Galina Petrovna, nursing a perpetual cold and resenting her dead-end posting, appraised his sincere desperation against the underbooked manifest, sighed theatrically, stamped his ticket with a thud, and waved him through without further questions. Durbanev boarded huffing at 14:15, dumping a bulging canvas duffel, stuffed with rebar bending tools, clean change of woolen underwear, heel of black bread wrapped in newspaper, half-eaten smoked sausage link, and dog-eared photo of his fiancée back in the village, into the forward overhead netting before claiming a scratched vinyl window seat immediately behind the open cockpit bulkhead, oblivious that he had just blundered into the historical crosshairs of a daring Cold War defection plot destined for global headlines. The cabin gradually populated with archetypal Soviet regional travelers embodying the era's drab cross-section. 3 elderly babushkas in woolen headscarves and rubber galoshes, clutching cloth bundles of homemade pickles and embroidered linens for far-flung daughters. 2 paunchy middle-aged procurement agents from a Simferopol fish cannery, leather briefcases bursting with triplicate forms authorizing salt quotas and tin plate allocations. A harried young mother wrestling a squirming 2-year-old onto her lap with one hand while clutching ration coupons for Krasnodar department store, powdered milk with the other. Final boarding cleared the fictitious Ivanova family slot as intended. Up front, Captain Alexei Vasilyevich Minchenko, 49, graying at temples with the leathery face of 2 decades battling Black Sea squalls and icing conditions, embodied Aeroflot's dependable proletarian backbone. A devoted Simferopol family man, wife teaching secondary mathematics, 2 grown children in technical institutes, modest dacha plot yielding potatoes and gooseberries tended every Sunday. Minchenko logged thousands of hours on An-2 biplanes and L-200 regionals, his faded uniform jacket frayed elegantly at cuffs and elbows from thrifty home mending. His fresh-faced co-pilot, 26-year-old Vladimir Kuznetsov, straight out of Kirovograd Civil Aviation School, methodically ran pre-flight checklists while Minchenko bantered amiably with ground handlers about prime autumn mackerel spots off Anapa and the latest Gosplan tractor production quotas. Takeoff executed flawlessly at 14:20 sharp. Morava's pair of Walter M337 inline engines whirred throatily to full power. Lightweight airframe trundled briskly down the 800-meter grass strip scattering gulls, rotated smoothly at 120 kilometers per hour, and climbed steadily through coastal thermals over the Kerch Strait, where ferries plied between Crimea and Krasnodar Krai. Banking northwest toward destination at assigned 1,500 meters, Black Sea surface fractured like hammered sapphire far below. Cabin pressure normalized comfortably. Passengers settled. Babushkas dozed over rosaries. Procurement men pored over Komsomolskaya, Pravda crosswords. Mother nursed toddler to sleep. Derbenev unwrapped his sausage with relish. Simferopol ATC confirmed departure routinely via scratchy VHF. SSR 34401 Heavy cleared Krasnodar Civil, flight level 5,000 meters, winds light, visibility excellent, out. Minchenko lit a Belomorkanal paparosa in the open cockpit doorway, exhaling contentedly toward 12 o'clock. Krasnodar skyline, hazy on horizon. Precisely 15 minutes airborne over empty steppe and receding coastline. Altitude stabilized 1,500 meters, airspeed 280 kilometers per hour, fuel 70% remaining. The cousins detonated their meticulously rehearsed ambush with mirror-perfected choreography, exploiting the L-200's fatal design flaw. Completely open cockpit access from the single-aisle passenger cabin, lacking door, partition, curtain, or even symbolic drape. From innocuous rear-row seats, they uncoiled like springs. Gilev lunging left, seizing Minchenko's collar from behind in the captain's chair, yanking a coarse burlap potato sack, procured gratis from Kerch Kolkhoz storage shed, over the startled pilot's head in one fluid, practiced motion that plunged him into musty darkness. Pozdiv flanked right, jamming his market toy pistol, cheap zinc cap gun, repainted glossy black with scavenged shoe polish, barrel menacing under fluorescent tubing, against Minchenko's temple, while simultaneously flashing the companion wooden mock grenade. Pineapple-profiled pine block meticulously whittled over 3 evenings in Institute woodshop, weighted internally with lead fishing sinkers for authentic heft. To maximize disorientation and immobilize resistance, they clamped an improvised metal restraint, scavenged aircraft seat pan bracket pried loose during airfield loitering, edges filed blunt but vice-tight around Minchenko's skull like a crude Iron Age helmet, pinning sack irrevocably while allowing shaky hands minimal yoke access under shouted duress. Minchenko gasped hoarsely, flailing blindly for radio microphone before cold muzzle pressure and grenade heft stilled him mid-reach. Simultaneously, Pozdiv pivoted starboard, snaring curious Durbanev, risen halfway from seat to peer forward at cockpit commotion, looping heavy hemp rope, smuggled coiled, inside trouser legs, thrice around thick wrists, twice ankles, trussing the burly worker like holiday poultry into co-pilot chair with face-muffled snarls. Remaining 6 passengers jolted bolt upright from complacency, convulsed instantly into primal terror. Babushkas shrieked, Hail Marys clutching rosaries. Procurement men dropped briefcases scattering rubber stamps and carbon forms. Mother-shielded shrieking toddler. All herded rearward at pistol point amid barked commands. Hands visible, sit tight, no heroes. No authentic firearm discharged. 0 blood-soiled faded blue cabin carpet or cream Naugahyde benches. Hijackers dominated utterly via raw blitzkrieg surprise. L-200's claustrophobic 10-by-2-meter envelope, where resistance guaranteed mid-air tumble catastrophe, plus visceral dread summoned by convincingly hefted props amid 1970 aviation's hijacking naive populace. Minchenko, patriotic aviator, spotless service record, family photos tucked wallet, in sack-shrouded panic, protested muffledly through burlap weave. Fuel marginal turkey word. 300 kilometers southwest demanding 90-minute detour. Gathering clouds. Black Sea crossing risky. International incident guaranteed reprisals kinfolk. Pozdiv countered icy pistol probe temple. Grenade hefted Durbanev's nose. Southwest immediate. Radio silence absolute. Landmarks called or captain joins ancestors. Comprehension dawned futility. Under extremity, Minchenko complied shakily. Yoke hard. Left banking. Morava 180 degrees south. Throttles eased conserving Avgas. Descent prudent 1,000 meters dead. Reckoning Turkish littoral via compass peaks. Sack gaps. Pozdiv saw Gailev backseat navigation shouting, Coastline 12 o'clock low. Simferopol Tower, escalated frantic. 34401, Krasnodar approach report. Deviation southeast confirm. Void responses triggered KGB border alarm. MiG-21 interceptors scrambled Saki airbase, futilely chasing low-profile civilian ghost. Cockpit stewed hour-long sweatbox inferno. Fuel needles kissed redline. Starboard Walter engines stuttered ominously. Feed clog from unoptimized profile or headwinds. Cabin passengers whimpered prayers. Durbanev strained mute ropes, glaring daggers. Minchenko navigated blind desperation, glimpsing Anatolia haze. Shoreline materialized 1542. Sinop provincial military strip faint below. Single reconnaissance orbit oriented, Minchenko committed. Wheels down grass touchdown. 1545 local, airframe slamming rutted sheep pastured turf. Undercarriage protesting gravel shear, SSSR 34401, lurching dusty halt amid prop dirt plumes, final Avgas droplets evaporating smokily. Turkish garrison pounced textbook, BTR-60S jeeps cordoned tarmac, triple ring 3 minutes, infantry MG nests entrenched. Loudhailers blared multilingual, surrender, weapons down. Barricades, sandbags materialized. F-104 spotters buzzed validation. Cousins, adrenaline crashed, sweat-drenched shirts plastered, complied instantly unlashing captives, emerging wing-raised palms, skyward yelling, political asylum seekers. Fractured Turkish, phrasebook crammed. Minchenko staggered, blinking Anatolian glare, burlap scarf-necked absurdly, bracket cocked comically, complexion ashen, sweat-streaked. Durbanev lurched rope-chafed, flexing bull limbs, duffel forgotten chaos. Passengers clustered babbling relieved Turkish medics. Vitals checked. No fractures, mere hysteria, abrasions. Props odd amateur sufficiency. Ankara navigated Soviet rage, NATO flank delicately. Provisional refugee status cousins, interrogated mildly military guesthouse. Plane impounded 48 hours. Turkish techs marveled sack bracket genius, airframe stress minimal. Diplomatically repatriated An-12 heavy lift Kerch Ward heavy escort. Moscow Politburo Kremlin emergency. Stupefaction, lowly students burlap sack empire's vaunted invulnerability. Minchenko, Kuznetsov. 48-hour KGB grill, hailed composure heroes. Minchenko Red Banner Order, DACA expansion, promotion assurances. Durbanev Krasnodar. Celebrity, rope welts, brandished brigade mates, state-vetted interviews, vigilant Soviet against anti-socials. Cousins bittersweet, Turkish asylum scant prospects. UNHCR West Germany resettlement incognito factory lives old age. Footnote, Cold War daring émigré lore. Act reshaped aviation cataclysmically. Exposed cockpit anarchy, unarmed naivety, screening absence. 1973. Reforms draconian. Article 87, RSFSR, hijack 8 to 15 years. Camps psych evals. Pilots Makarov, Trunchin. Training KGB. Steel cockpit fortresses peephole locks, fleet-wide. Manifest KGB vetted. Suspicious bookings surveilled. Kerch pivot. Casual prop flights, cabin smokes, pilot chats. Hypervigilant fortress. Toy pistol. Burlap proved total control illusion fragile. Tuesday, Black Sea skies cracked empire facade. Reshaping Kerch Kronstadt protocols improbably eternal.